A quiet apartment in Milwaukee until police looked in the fridge. That moment uncovered one of the most disturbing cases in American history.
Today, we're going inside the mind of Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal, how he got away with so much for so long, and what investigators found when they finally opened that apartment door.
You're listening to Crime Busters Podcast with Nyla.
And Creek. So, before we get into the crime scene and the investigation, we need to look at Dahmer's early life because there were warning signs, patterns that were missed.
Jeffrey Dahmer was born in 1960. A lot of sources describe his childhood as lonely and unstable. He was fascinated with animal bones early on, and his parents fought constantly. Teachers noticed he was withdrawn, but back then, this wasn't recognized as a red flag.
And as he got older, that isolation got worse. By high school, he was drinking heavily. He still felt disconnected from everyone around him.
These behaviors didn't cause what he became, but they showed early cracks forming, cracks that no one took seriously. Episode 1: Dahmer's Tactics and Police Failures. Let's get into how Dahmer actually lured his victims because it wasn't random. He targeted very specific people, usually young men who were vulnerable, isolated, or just trying to get by. Some were experiencing homelessness, some had strained family relationships, and others were simply walking alone at night.
And Dahmer knew how to read people. He'd offer exactly what someone might need in that moment. Sometimes it was money for photos, sometimes a drink, a place to hang out, or just someone to talk to. He created this sense of safety really quickly.
And that's the part people underestimate. He didn't come off as threatening, he wasn't aggressive or loud, he wasn't the stereotypical Hollywood monster. He could seem normal, even shy.
And honestly, that's what made him so dangerous. When someone looks harmless, your guard drops. And he used that to his advantage over and over again.
Once people stepped into his apartment, things changed. His earliest crimes almost always involved drugs. Investigators later found empty pill bottles and proof that he bought large amounts of sleeping medication.
He'd slip the pills into drinks, and once the victim was unconscious, that's when he acted. And the chilling part? This pattern started early and only escalated.
And the thing that's frustrating is how many chances there were to catch him. Let's go back to 1978, right after his first murder. He was walking down the road with trash bags, and a police officer stopped him.
The officer asked what was in the bags, and Dahmer lied. He said they were just yard clippings. In reality, those bags had body parts, and because he looked calm and respectful, the officer believed him and let him go home.
And then we have the 1991 incident, one of the most heartbreaking and famous examples of police failure. A 14-year-old boy, Konorak Synthasimphone, escaped Dahmer's apartment. He was injured, barely clothed, and clearly terrified.
Neighbors called the police immediately. They tried explaining that the boy was a minor and needed help, but Dahmer came outside, calm as always, and said it was just a relationship issue, something private.
And the officers believed him. They ignored the neighbors, ignored the boy's condition, and actually walked Konorak back into Dahmer's apartment.
That decision cost that boy his life. Dahmer murdered him shortly after the police left, and investigators later said that if officers had looked around the apartment, even for a few seconds, they would have found evidence of multiple murders.
That moment is seen as one of the biggest failures in this case, and it's a reminder that someone's calm personality doesn't equal safety. Dahmer used that calmness as a weapon. This episode is brought to you by Trace Tech, the future of DNA analysis and modern pathology. At Trace Tech, every strand of DNA tells a story. From cold cases to medical breakthroughs, their team uses cutting edge technology to uncover the truth hidden inside our cells. With faster results, ultra precise sequencing, and science you can trust, Trace Tech is changing the way mysteries get solved. Trace Tech, solving mysteries one cell at a time. Episode 2: Discovery of Evidence and Victim Identification. So everything finally came to light on July 22nd, 1991. This is the moment that broke open the entire case. Tracy Edwards managed to escape Dahmer's apartment, running for his life, and he flagged down two police officers on the street. He was handcuffed, frantic, and told them someone was trying to kill him.
And honestly, if Tracy hadn't been brave enough to run, we might not even be talking about this case the same way today. So the officers follow him back to the apartment, not really knowing what they're walking into. And as soon as they step inside, things feel wrong. The smell, the layout, just this heavy, weird vibe.
The officers first notice the handcuffs. Then they see a knife on the floor. Tracy tells them the key is in the bedroom. And when one of the officers goes to look, that's when everything shifts.
He opens a drawer and finds Polaroids. At first, he thinks they're stage photography, but then he realizes the poses are real, the bodies are real, and they match the apartment layout. That's the moment he turns to Dahmer and says, "These are real." And Dahmer tries to fight back, but the officers take him down right there.
And once they had Dahmer in custody, that apartment basically turned into one of the biggest crime scenes in modern American history. Forensics teams moved in within minutes. They photographed everything from the living room to the fridge. They took over 80 Polaroids. They found skeletal remains, some cleaned, some mid process. Tools, chemicals, acid, a full setup meant to break down and preserve human remains.
Something that stuck with the investigators was the smell. Neighbors had complained, but Dahmer always used this, "oh, it's just rotten meat" excuse. And inside the apartment, it didn't immediately smell like decomposition because of all the chemicals he used to mask or slow it. So even the smell was misleading.
And then came the hardest part, identifying the victims. A lot of the remains were incomplete or damaged, so forensic scientists had to pull from anything they could: dental records, DNA, heel injury, tattoos, bone structure, anything. Some identifications took weeks, some took months.
A lot of people don't realize this, but those Polaroids, the one Dahmer took, ended up being essential. Without them, several victims might never have been identified. They helped match remains, confirm timelines, and give families answers.
And it's heartbreaking because the same photos he took for control and obsession ended up becoming key to finally recognizing his victims as individuals and not just as evidence. Episode 3: Dahmer's Confession and His Verdict.
Once Dahmer was caught, everything changed really fast. What's wild is that he didn't try to deny anything. He confessed almost immediately. Detectives said he talked for hours, calmly, almost politely, walking them through every crime. No hesitation, no emotion. He explained how he chose victims, what he did afterward, even the reasons behind it.
And the reasons were disturbing. He said he killed because he wanted total control. He didn't want his victims to leave or reject him. In his mind, the only way to guarantee that was murder. He talked about wanting people who were always with him. It wasn't rage or impulse, it was obsession mixed with a complete lack of empathy.
That's when psychologists got involved. They did a full evaluation. Some said he had personality disorders, borderline schizophrenic, and antisocial personality traits. But here's the key part: he wasn't considered legally insane. He understood his actions, he planned them, he hid evidence, and he lied when it suited him. All of that showed he knew right from wrong.
Exactly. People sometimes picture insanity as someone who seems off, but legally, it's very specific. Dahmer didn't meet that standard. He was mentally disturbed, yes, but he was still responsible for every decision he made.
The trial officially started in January 1992. It was intense. The courtroom was full every single day. Journalists, families, people just trying to understand how something like this could happen. And the families of the victims, their statements were powerful. Some were angry, some were heartbroken, some were shaking as they spoke. They wanted answers, but they also wanted justice.
And after weeks of testimony and evidence, the verdict finally came in: guilty on 15 counts of murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison. Actually, 16 life terms. It was basically a guarantee that he would never leave the prison walls again.
But even after the trial ended, the story didn't. Life in prison was rough for him. He was attacked multiple times. Some inmates hated what he did. Others thought he got too much media attention. And Dahmer himself wasn't exactly trying to keep a low profile. He joked about his crimes in prison, which made a lot of people even angrier.
And on November 28th, 1994, it all caught up with him. He was assigned to a cleaning detail with two other inmates, and one of them, Christopher Scarver, ended up killing him in a bathroom area in the prison. Dahmer died before he even made it to the hospital.
And that was the end of the case. But for the families and the community, the impact didn't disappear. It still hasn't.
Let's wrap things up. So, what can we learn from this case? First, forensic technology has come a long way. Today, DNA testing and better investigative training makes it harder for someone like Dahmer to slip through the cracks.
Second, mental health awareness matters. Dahmer's early isolation and behavior patterns didn't guarantee he'd become violent, but they were warning signs that nobody recognized.
And finally, this case shows why law enforcement needs proper training, especially in marginalized communities. Mistakes in this case literally allowed more victims to die.
Remembering these victims means making sure nothing like this ever happens again.
Thanks for listening to Crime Busters Podcast. This episode was researched and produced by Nyla Mallory and Creek Mose Locker.
Special thanks to the forensics and psychological sources we use for research.
And thank you for listening. Bye.